This episode of I Work for Him is brought to you by SaferNet, online at safernet.com.
You've tuned into I Work for Him, the voice of collaboration for the faith and work movement.
And we are your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg, and our mission is to transform the workplace of every Christian into a mission field. What does that look like in your workplace? Well, let's find out right now.
If we were to conduct a poll of everyone listening today and ask you, are the tech giants evil? Are they a lost cause? Should we all be paranoid about their end goals of controlling thought, commerce, and religion? Almost all of you would say yes, yes, and yes. But what if I told you that each of the major tech companies has allowed groups of Jesus followers to gather together to pray and fellowship and grow in their faith? Google, Intel, Apple, Facebook, and Microsoft. Each of these companies and many, many more are allowing believers to come together and live out their faith at work. Today, our focus will jump to Microsoft and the Christian ERG Employee Resource Group. Well, that's really not an ERG, but it's sort of an ERG. And well, we're going to let Lori Kim tell you all about it. Lori Kim is here to tell us and talk about the amazing things happening at Microsoft and beyond in her hometown, the windy city of Chicago, Illinois. Lori Kim, welcome to I Work for Him.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Martha and Jim, for having me here today. And before I share the story, I wanted to give a quick the expectation, the perspective, the stories I'll be sharing today are based on my personal experiences, including my faith journey and how I integrate faith at work and in my ecosystem. So these are my own personal views and are intended for general information purposes only, and they do not represent official statements or positions of Microsoft.
So noted. So noted. Yeah, we get that.
Good job.
So what she's saying is that Microsoft does not endorse what she's going to say, and that's just fine. We want to hear your Jesus story. Tell us your Jesus story.
Thank you. So I grew up as a pastor's kid. So I'm a pastor's kid in an immigrant family. So I immigrated to U.S. when I was 11 years old with zero English. So culture shock, language shock, right? And the local church in our the Chicago Divine community was the cornerstone of our lives, right? So my understanding of God was shaped by the hands and hearts of our church community. And if I can be honest, I often wrestle with the disconnect sometimes that happens between my belief about God and my personal experiences, especially at times struggling to connect with, the invisible God, through our challenges, right? Especially as an immigrant family. So with the humble beginning, we were more in a survival mode, if you will, right? With no permission to really express my feelings. And I was expected to be that perfect, pastor's kid, right? So I struggled with perfection, to be honest. And I feel like I was kind of forced to grow up, mature quickly. And I learned early on that, coming from humble beginning, that complaints don't get you anywhere. Only actions matter. So my identity became tied to my accomplishments, confidence in doing and working hard. And that eventually led to burnout. And my father, who was a pastor, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and he battled for a couple of years. And it was really hard for me and for our family at the time. And I had this dangerous prayer. I didn't realize that it was dangerous at the time. And I prayed that, God, I want to learn the secret, right? To be content no matter the circumstances, because I'm losing the joy. And then came the 3 years of storm. And on the day my father passed away, I lost both my father and my job, which was my identity at that time, and shaking my sense of identity. And the grief was really hard. Grief is the loss of anything in life. And it is very personal, and it's a long and painful process, especially when you lose someone, especially in your family, right? And I think grief, in my experience, is in 3 parts. So first is the loss, right? Loss of my father. A second is the grieving process, and there's a whole process that comes with grief. But, the healing journey that really begins with surrendering our whole lives and every moment of our lives to God. And finally, the remaking of life, the transformation, right? And I feel that when our pain meets our purpose, it becomes our calling. And we don't waste our pain, right? And God transformed me through the years of storm, growing in wisdom the emotional maturity and also the relational maturity took place in that years of storm, right? And teaching me how brevity our life is, to choose fear of God over fear of men, and the importance of it having the eternal perspective, right? And I began to see my work as an extension of my faith and finding the unity. There's no divide between secular and sacred, right? There's only one life, and the peace, shalom, that it comes in everything that I was doing, and learning to integrate faith and work. And as a recovering workaholic, finding and joining a Christian employee group at work, even before Microsoft Azure North America, provided a sense of belonging and a fresh perspective on the ultimate meaning of work through God's eyes, through God's lens, right? And this renewed vision, and also this view, the growth mindset, and also the gospel mindset, right, has really energized my whole life. And really allowed me to experience God within my work, and true calling isn't in what you're doing. And I believe it's in who you are doing it for. So that big realization through the transformation took place. And my life is a testament that God will make a way for you. Doors have opened that I didn't even know existed. So many stories around that, right? And situations worked out way better than I could have imagined was possible, right? And as I look back on my journey, I'm just filled with awe and gratitude, right, for all the blessings and challenges, that have come in my way. And I still remember, praying for the things I have now. And I'm super grateful, right, for the trials and tribulations. I have no sunk cost, even though I don't want to revisit that, right, the storm, right? And I don't wish that for anyone, but it was very important for me to go through that learning process. And I'm grateful for all the people, right, and the prayers that have guided me where I am today. And I feel very honored and privileged to serve God, by serving our neighbors and sharing stories like how I am sharing today, because I really believe that our faith grows when we share stories, just like Jesus shared parables, to spread the good news, right? And I give all glory to God for this amazing opportunity. And thank you again, Martha and Jim, for inviting me, and for our listeners, to leaning into my Jesus story. Thank you.
So talk to us about how that Jesus story has impacted you in the high-tech world as you ended up with a job at Microsoft and got involved in marketplace ministry for Microsoft. How did that understanding that you gained during those storms transform how you looked at your work in the high-tech world?
Thank you for the question. I love it because, living out our faith is important part of who we are, our whole authentic self at work. And God grows our soul through our work, in our development and how we show up at work as Christians. And we experience God in new ways. And the maturity takes place as well. And I feel like in today's virtual world, we were just talking about that, right? Where there's no casual water cooler conversation, if you will, right? To share personal stories and deepen relationship. There's nothing quite like the energy that comes from having a belonging, a shared sense of community, right? Sharing stories as our faith grows, and also fostering connection, energizing possibilities, right? As Brene Brown says, connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. And, having the opportunity at my work, we have a Christian group called Marketplace Ministry for Microsoft. And our vision and what our mission is, as a Christian faith-based inclusive group, is to invite not only Christians, both believers and unbelievers, right? Our allies and our extended community, so that they can be inspired. We are inspired together to learn and grow together, engaging with our One Microsoft growth mindset culture, so we can bring our whole self to work, including our faith, and be the best that we can be. And it's a wonderful opportunity that we have.
And we want to talk in detail about that, but really first we want to give a shout out to one of our great sponsors, Martha.
Yeah, so SaferNet is, where you're in the tech world. And so maybe even some of the people that have never listened to our show before are in technology because they're listening to your story, Lori. But SaferNet is a company that we rely on here at I Work for Him and in our personal life because they are protecting our computers so that we can do the very things we're meant to be doing and keeping out the bad guys, keeping the filters on, keeping everything in place to help help us have a safe environment for our business and our home. So safernet.com is where you can go to learn more about their VPN, the filters, everything that they have to offer to protect us so that we can keep doing the work that God has called us to do and do it safely and to keep everything intact. So, Lori, I would love to hear from you how you see yourself actually living out your faith at work. What does it look like in your day-to-day?
So for me, as Christian, as believer, it's a reflection of our relationship with our God and representing Him in all spheres, including the marketplace, which is our work. And I feel like our work becomes a ministry, and we partner with God, right, where we apply gospel truth and we nurture our souls and experience His presence in every challenge. So our vocation is more of a divine calling, not just a job, right? Living out the Great Commission, embracing our gifts and serving others with love. And the way we do that is, at Microsoft, what we do is with our Christian group, we have our weekly Bible study, and we also have weekly prayer meeting, and we have what we call a monthly wisdom.
Hang on. You're talking about all this group stuff. We want to know how Lori Kim, in her role at Microsoft, is living out your faith. What does it look like? How does it impact what you do on a daily basis? Because we're going to talk about all the great stuff that's going on with the Microsoft, or what Marketplace, what do we call it again? Sorry, Marketplace Ministry of Microsoft. We know that there's a lot of good stuff going on there. But for Lori Kim personally, as a tech person, what does it look like for you to live out your faith?
Yes, so gospel is personal, right? And I believe the world needs, who God made you to be. And for me, to fully live my calling to God's love in service of others is very important. And the way I show up at work is to reflect God's love for others, right? And that takes creating a space, where we can connect and worship and draw together. And also, listening, deep listening. And showing them we care, that we are here for them, right? And I do that through not only at work, but also through volunteer work that I do. So I serve in a couple of nonprofit organizations to reflect God's love for others and to invest in the legacy impact.
When you say, reflecting God's love to others, sometimes that's not easy in our workplaces. And so it's, it sounds like such a simple concept, but, when we, and our listeners and Jim and I and you, we've all experienced that where, boy, there's sometimes it's really hard to reflect God's love.
Sometimes people are just hard to love.
And I think that's why then that what you were saying about your marketplace ministry for Microsoft is so important, because it helps you to build that up and to reinforce it and to encourage each other as you're living it out, so that you kind of hold each other accountable, right? When you know who the other believers are at work, it's like, that wasn't really reflecting God's love, Lori, in that moment. So how is that Christian group helping you then to reflect God's love?
Discipleship, I think, is how I would explain it. Listening and spending time, and really getting to know people as people, and building their relationship, their one-on-one, relationship. I think is very important, because the closer that you get, to know the person, the greater impact you can have, not only in that person's life, and also for yourself, because you need that proximity, to really fuel that empathy, right? And to show them the love of Jesus in the ways that we can. Sometimes, yes, it is messy, but I think it's so worth, keep trying and holding each other accountable and showing up for one another, and having that encouragement from one another is huge in this journey.
So you mentioned a lot of different things going on within your workplace, and Microsoft's got offices all over the world, and it's got, tens of thousands of employees. But you mentioned that Marketplace Ministry Microsoft, you get monthly meetings, you pray together. Talk to us about what you're doing, because you got people coming in from all over the world.
Yes. So we have our weekly Bible study on Tuesday. We have alternating times, right? Because we do have, different time zones. We have people from Pacific and also out of country as well. So we do have alternating times. And we have weekly prayers for our company that happens on Wednesday. And we have our monthly wisdom events, that usually takes place on a Friday. We are taking summer break right now, but we're hoping to resume in September. And this is where I had my Esther moment, because especially when I first started at Microsoft, because we're not a formal employee resource group yet, it wasn't as easy to find it at first, right? Mm-hmm. So I actually learned about our Christian group at Wheaton College Center for Faith Innovation Executive Forum. And that was my Esther moment to say, how can we make this easier for people that are hungry to look for this belonging, right? And that's when I shared the idea about having the monthly wisdom program, right? Where it's an open, safe space, for Microsoft families, both believers and unbelievers, right? How do we interact informally, frequently, making our big company feel small as one Microsoft, right? And we started having this on monthly basis on different topics that we as human beings are hungry to learn, right? So we can thrive in wisdom, bring people together from all different, time zones and locations, right? And, we can do that because of technology, right? Yeah. And ignite that transformation. And how can we be a blessing for one another and spark that curiosity to learn about what is it about us, that we have this wonderful time together to grow in wisdom, right? And that brings so much joy and excellence to our work. So I just love that we have this time because, when you have, there's faith-based inclusion and diversity as part of that. And we do have our website that has all the inclusion and diversity that I'll be sharing with you in case any of our listeners are interested in learning more. But I feel that when we have the faith and work connection, when we have that integration, we strive for excellence in our role, right? And having integrity and having the genuine care for our coworkers, because I think it really makes a huge difference for us to do our best work as a result.
Sure. So we all know, like Microsoft is global, but you also have boots on the ground. You live in the windy city of Chicago. So, we hear, unfortunately, you always hear the bad news, right? So tell us how God is actually moving in Chicago. What are you seeing happen there that maybe we aren't hearing?
Yes, thank you for asking that. So we do have many stories and movements, that are reflecting the good in Chicago, right? And the historic too, right? I Am movement. And there's also the spiritual church movement. I actually did a co-pilot quick research to find out, right, the historical side of it. And we have the Moody Bible Institute that was founded in Chicago as well. But the current, right, the strong current of hope and encouragement that we have going on right now, through the Windy City, we have Faith and Work movement that's happening, right? So I serve on the Chicago team, and Faith and Work movement is one of the largest global networks of corporate workplace fellowship that we have, where we meet together, right, encourage one another, right, and we catalyze strategic cities for spiritual renewal, and we impact the companies that impact the world in positive ways, right? So we have workplace groups, right, coach leaders, and we connect with marketplace community. And through the Chicago events that I serve on the team, we have focus groups, and we also have Faith and Work workshop, where we share how we bring faith in our ecosystem, and we share stories, and we have seminars, and we have events around Chicago. A lot of good, God is on the move. And
that's exactly what I was thinking in my head was God is on the move. And that's why we asked the question, because I think people need to hear, that God is at work in our work. And that is happening in Chicago. So
is there a website that you could plug for that Faith and Work movement?
Absolutely.
What is that?
Absolutely. I will share the website with you, so you can please share, the link with our listeners. We have Faith and Work movement, and there's also the Religious Freedom Business Foundation. There's all this amazing movement that is going on why, bringing our whole authentic self is only good for business, right? And it's really encouraging people, especially in this time of struggle, right? We live in that anxious generation now, right? So I think it's really important that we lift each other up and encourage one another. The
only people living in anxiousness are the people that are caught in traffic in Chicago right now, because it doesn't matter what time of day they go to Chicago, there's traffic on the Kennedy, the Expressway. It's always traffic. All right, but a shout out to ePayments, one of our sponsors, if I work for him. We're all using payment processors to process something, whether it's for your organization, your ministry, whether maybe it's your church, maybe it's your business. You're using a payment processor. The problem is most of the major payment processors, They don't have any respect for anything that has to do with Christianity. In fact, they support the things that are opposite of Christianity. So why are you paying them to process your payments while they support the enemy and everything you don't believe in? Check out ePayments online at epayments.com. They're a payment processor with Christ as the center, and every dime or a part of every payment processing fee that you pay will go to I Work for Him. ePayments.com. Stop supporting the enemy with your payment processing. Get it switched right now.
You know, what's really neat about ePayments is that it's actually run by a couple of Christian women that are leading that organization. So, Lori, as we think about Christian working women, and you're in the middle of a huge organization, so there are probably a lot of women also in that type of a role listening right now. Can you speak some words of encouragement to them as they seek out to live out their faith in their work?
Absolutely. Actually, I have 3 reminders that I wanted to share as the encouragement. First, embrace all that God has made you to be. We can do it all as working women, right? I'm a mom of 2 girls and puppy, and maybe not all at the same time, and definitely not alone, right? Because there is time for everything and season for every activity under the heavens, right? Mm-hmm. And our journey may not be our own, but we don't walk it alone, right? So that the support system that you have, the sources of strength that you have, and trust that God empowers everyone, right? Those that are ready to serve with love. And number 2, the beauty and the power of prayers, right? Your prayer plants seeds for the future, leaving a lasting legacy. So trusting God's plan, even through suffering, pray as long as it takes, right? And believe in the transformative power of our persistent prayer. And finally, remember to rest. Bless yourself with the rest, right? And you will be able to bless the world with your great work, and the importance of having a sacred rhythm, whatever that may be for you, be still, still finding the time to be still in God's word, right? So that you can move forward in a sustainable way with joy. And remembering to rest in Him moment by moment is so important.
But everybody listening, I want you to go deeper, because everybody listening that is married to a woman or is a woman knows that life as a Christian working woman is significantly more complicated than life as a Christian working man, because your role as wife and mother accentuates the challenges of working. How do you balance that at home? Because you also talked about all the volunteer work you're doing, and you got 2 teenage daughters. Oh my goodness, 2 teenage daughters. There's so much drama going on.
Don't make it rush it. Teen and preteen.
Ooh, it makes me have hot flashes think about those teenage daughter years again. Specifically, where do you go to get encouragement as a Christian working woman? What's your resource to go to get encouragement to say, I can do this?
Bible. And I think it's really important for me, I start the day, I call it the miracle morning in His presence. And reading even just one verse in Bible helps me to stay present in His presence, right? And to be reminded that He is for me and He is here with me. And then He'll walk through whatever life throws at me together is huge, right? And knowing that I'm not alone in this, and having a support system, your sources of your strength, right? Your family and your friends, right? And having a belonging at work, like Christian group. It's so important. I engage in employee resource group, a woman at Microsoft, right? And families at Microsoft, because having that belonging and knowing that you're not going through this alone is huge encouragement. And always starting the day in His presence, in prayers, and knowing that God's got this. Because God's got this, you've got this, right?
That's fantastic. I love that.
Such a good word. Any last final words of encouragement you want to give to the audience?
I would just repeat the same thing, the importance and the power of prayer and having your team of people, I call them life-giving people, joy-giving people, right? And with you throughout the time, and just remembering not to give up and pray as long as it takes and fight to the finish line. There's no turning back, right? And having that eternal perspective, gospel lens is really, really helpful, especially when life gets really hard.
Lori Kim, thanks for sharing your story and a little bit of your journey and how God's using you in the high-tech world. Thanks for being on I Work Room today.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to I Work For Him with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. We're Christ followers. Our workplace, it's our mission field, but ultimately,
I work for him. This episode of I Work For Him is brought to you by SaferNet, online at safernet.com.
Calling all entrepreneurs and parents. Protecting those we love on the internet is important. Safeguard your ventures and loved ones with SaferNet VPN. Our cybersecurity app keeps you safe on any device. Shield your business from cyber threats while ensuring a family-friendly online environment. Simplify your digital life with SaferNet VPN today. Get secured now. Sign up at safernet.com. That's safernet.com.
Did you know that God has a calling on your life? It's true. He's called you to bring Jesus to the world. For some, that may look like a pulpit or a foreign mission field, but for most of us, it looks like a construction site, a cubicle, a hospital, or a classroom. Wherever it is that you work, live, volunteer, and invest, that is your mission field. To learn more about integrating your faith into your work and retirement, check out our books, I Work For Him, She Works For Him, and I Retire For Him, by going to iworkforhim.com/bookstore.
Thanks for listening to the I Work For Him podcast with your hosts, Jim and Martha Brangenberg. Please visit iworkforhim.com to learn more about connecting your faith and work, to join the I Work For Him Nation, or subscribe to our weekly blog. You can also follow us on social media at I Work For Him to stay up to date and meet our guests. If today's message spoke to you, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast platform. Your review will launch more workplace missionaries across America. That's at I Work For Him and online at iworkforhim.com. I work, the number 4, him.com.